Coming up on this month's 219 West, the Catch-22 of Swine Flu. What to do if you can't take the medicine to fight the virus. Plus, if you don't reform immigration rules, don't count us in. Why some in the Latino community are talking about a boycott of the 2010 census.
It's a continuous campaign against the undocumented in this country. And I think that they have the right to say no. This is the first time that they have a chance to. So if they decide to not cooperate with the census, they have all the right to do that.
Hello, and welcome to 219 West, the monthly news magazine produced by students at the CUNY Graduate School of Journalism for CUNY-TV. I'm John DePietro.
And I'm Rima Abdelkader. We'll have those stories, plus a preview of a web documentary about what it means for an athlete to walk away from the game, an exclusive on the FBI file of studs Terkel, and we'll look at a quirky 9-to-5 job in New York City. But first, you hear the warnings all the time. Protect yourself this flu season by getting both the seasonal flu and the H1N1 vaccination. Good advice, right? But what if you or your child has asthma and can't take the nasal spray? Or what if you have an egg allergy? Or what if you have both? 219 West's Alana Rigal takes a look at the Catch-22 of swine flu.
John Wallace is a happy, friendly, talkative 2-year-old. 6 months ago, he was diagnosed with a chronic lung disease, asthma. His mother, Laura, is also asthmatic.
He's had to go to hospital a couple of times, and we've had to buy his own nebulizer. Oh boy.
This flu season is worrying people across the United States and worldwide. In addition to the seasonal flu, the recent outbreak of the H1N1 viral strain of the flu is affecting people at alarming rates. Women and young children are the most susceptible to the H1N1 virus.
Well, I was really worried because I work at a college, so obviously I'm around young adults all the time, and John goes to nursery, so I thought that it would be very important for us both to get the shot as soon as possible.
On average, about 2,000 New Yorkers die every year of the seasonal flu. This year, more than 10,000 have visited the emergency room with influenza-like symptoms.
The children with asthma seem to be hit a little bit worse. They accounted for a majority of the hospitalizations and a majority of the intensive care unit visits, and unfortunately also accounted for a number of the fatalities.
Doctors recommend the H1N1 nasal spray vaccine for young children. Though easier to administer and pain-free, critics of the vaccine have expressed concern that it was produced too quickly after the virus was identified.
The nasal vaccine contains the live virus, which in small doses doesn't cause any harm. The fact that the virus is active, however, could cause complications to those with respiratory problems, like asthma. Asthma patients are therefore encouraged to get the shot.
Sandeep Junnarkar's 7-year-old daughter, Suleika, came down with the swine flu, but had a more difficult problem.
My daughter's allergic to eggs, and so because the vaccines are grown in eggs, she can't get the flu shot. But the nasal spray, she couldn't get that either because she has asthma.
The antibiotic Tamiflu comes in pill or liquid form. It's not harvested in eggs and can help children like Suleika.
It came and she was sick for 3 days and it went away and she was fine. I can't tell you how relieved I was that everything was okay.
I thought it was going to be really bad, but he sat on my knee, and when they gave him the jab, he just went, oh, and then went, all better, and that was it. So he was fine. They saw him very quickly. All better. It was all better.
Alana Rigal, 219 West.
A national Latino clergy group has sparked a debate among Latino activists by announcing plans to persuade undocumented immigrants to boycott the 2010 census. 219 West reporter Aisha Al-Muslim has been looking into this.
Before being counted, we need to be legalized, reads the slogan of the campaign by a national Latino clergy group calling for undocumented immigrants to boycott the 2010 U.S. Census. The National Coalition of Latino Clergy and Christian Leaders is spearheading the boycott as a way to pressure Congress to pass legislation offering legalization to undocumented immigrants.
It's a continuous campaign against the undocumented in this country, and I think that they have the right to say no. this is the first time that they have a chance to. So if they decide to non-cooperate with the census, they have all the right to do that.
Martín Perez is a legal advisor for the coalition led by Reverend Miguel Rivera. Attempts to reach Rivera for an interview went unanswered. The coalition says it represents more than 20,000 Latino churches in 34 states, and 33% of its 4 million members are undocumented. Perez is also the head of the Latino Leadership Alliance of New Jersey. He says the alliance has not decided whether they should support the boycott, but that he understands Rivera's position.
It's the principle of non-cooperation with the regime when the regime it doesn't respond and doesn't, and when the regime oppress a population, and that's had to be respected because the undocumented people in our country is one of the most oppressed groups.
One of the opponents of the census boycott is Angelo Falcón, president of the National Institute for Latino Policy, a think tank in the Latino community.
The end is great. We all agree that we want to see that kind of immigration reform, but the means that they're proposing to us doesn't make sense to hardly anybody that I know of that, has been working with the census.
The call for undocumented immigrants to boycott the census has infuriated many Latino activists. They warn that if the boycott were to succeed, Latinos will lose political power, but most importantly, they will lose financial support.
The one thing that Latinos have in terms of being able to put pressure on the Congress, on the president, is our numbers. So anything that takes away from those numbers doesn't make sense because it kind of takes away from our power.
The National Association of Latino Elected and Appointed Officials, or NALEO, is among the several Latino organizations criticizing the proposed boycott.
We believe that the boycott to the census by a Latino evangelical group is irresponsible, and it's downright, it's like shooting yourself in the foot. At the end of the day, it's a bad strategy, so we're against it.
The census counts all people regardless of immigration status. It is used to allocate federal funds for education, housing, healthcare, transportation, and other local needs. By some estimates, every person counted results in $1,000 in federal funds. The census is also used to distribute the 435 seats in the U.S. House of Representatives, which are based on a state's population. And
the question is whether in this process of selecting more congressmen based on the new census, whether those new congressmen that are selected as a result of the increase of the population when we count the undocumented, whether the question is whether those new congressmen are going to represent the undocumented or not.
The coalition is excluding New York City from the boycott because it views the city as immigrant-friendly, and Mayor Michael Bloomberg has been supportive of immigrants. New York City is home to more than 3 million immigrants. It is estimated that 500,000 of them came to this country illegally. The Bloomberg administration is pushing for everyone to be counted, including undocumented immigrants.
We're opposed to any kind of boycott. We encourage people to be civically engaged, and we don't think that anyone should follow the boycott because at the end of the day, it's going to hurt the very populations that need the most help in terms of resources.
Latino organizations are mobilizing to make sure the Hispanic community is not undercounted. NALEO is using the slogan, Ya es hora, or it's time, to urge mass participation in the census. Nearly 47 million U.S. residents are Latinos, according to the latest census figures. The 2000 census missed an estimated 3% of the Latino population.
It's important that we just count as many people as possible. Our goal is to ensure a 50 million Latino count.
Census officials stress that the information is confidential and that they don't inquire about immigration status or social security number. A person who discloses information from a census form can be subjected up to $250,000 in a fine or imprisonment up to 5 years.
It's an uphill battle to try to get folks in the Latino community to participate in census. We have so many folks that are here, you know, undocumented. They fear the government and what's going to be happening with that information.
For Falcón, the strategy of asking the undocumented Latino community to self-exclude would not succeed. He expects that all Latinos will participate in the census because they are aware of the impact for their next 10 years.
In the Latino community, people understand that the census is almost like a public relations thing for the Latino community, because these numbers, you start having all these articles, and a lot of that comes from those census numbers and that announcement that Latinos are here, we're growing, we're a big part of the population, and we're not going to go away.
The forms are due April 1st, Census Day. Households that do not return them will get a visit by census workers between April and July 2010. Once the population is counted, the census will deliver the data to the president by December 2010 and to the states by March 2011. Rima?
The eminent American storyteller Studs Terkel passed away last year. But just a few weeks ago, our colleague, reporter Valerie Lapinski, uncovered the contents of his FBI file. Her exclusive was posted on the New York City News Service and picked up by the Associated Press, the Los Angeles Times, the New York Times, and many other news websites and blogs. Valerie is actually here with us in the studio to talk about her findings. Thanks for being with us.
Hi, Rima.
So why did the FBI investigate Studs Terkel?
Well, Studs was a broadcaster and an entertainer during the McCarthy era, and he hung out with a lot of people who were suspected by the federal government of being communists. So some of those people were definitely being followed, and he suspected that he was as well.
Who were some of the people he was associated with?
One person that was mentioned a lot in the documents was the entertainer Paul Robeson. He was very active with the civil rights movement, and back then that was considered a hint that you may be a communist. So,
what were some of the contents in his FBI file?
There was some great stuff. I mean, they really, really followed him closely. They followed him to every cocktail party he went to, every event he spoke at, and he was a public speaker, so he was constantly going places and speaking with people. But the cutest thing was that he actually applied for a job with the FBI in the 30s as a fingerprint technician, and of course later when they were following him, there's a little memo that says, yes, this is actually the same guy who applied for this job with us. And that was just a funny thing to see.
Wow, who would have known that?
Seriously.
What was the whole process in getting this FBI file?
I wrote a Freedom of Information Act request to the FBI for his files. When someone passes away, you can try to get their documents from the federal agency. And I filed that in June for my investigative reporting class, and I finally got the documents in November.
And what was the lesson that you took away from this whole process?
As a reporter, the lesson I took away is that you have to really persevere if you want these documents. It is our right to see these federal documents, but it does take a lot of follow-up, and some people wait years and years to get a request. But it also reflected on the times back then. I mean, Studs Terkel was followed to every cocktail party he went to, every event he went to. The notes were so extensive, and the agency put a lot of energy into following this man.
Was there a point in this whole process that you thought that I'll never get this file?
Oh yeah, I wasn't expecting to get it by the time the semester ended. I just figured that it was going to go away and nothing was going to come of it. And then one day, big envelope arrived for me, and it was really exciting.
Wow, Val, great work.
Thanks, Rima.
Welcome home, man.
When young athletes play out their sports careers and their dreams, it's filled with tales of glory, many hard-fought championships, and leaving the game on their own terms. But what happens when an athlete's playing days don't end according to that plan, and they're forced to go on living their lives without playing the sport they love? Examining that question is fellow CUNY J schooler Colin Orcutt in his upcoming web documentary, Walking Away from the Game.
I often think about how much time I've spent practicing, or how many shots I've made during the course of my life. And you know, I feel like I probably put more time into basketball than I've put into just about anything in my entire lifetime. I'm a varsity men's basketball player, point guard. The biggest and best memories I have of my childhood often relate to playing basketball, playing on my Fisher-Price hoop when I was younger, you know, and going to the parks when it was rainy or cold outside, and still shooting even though your hands were like freezing and stuff like that. Because I always had a ball in my hands. My dad played basketball. My brother, I had an older brother who was 5 years older than me. He always played basketball. So it was kind of like ingrained into me at like from an early age. I remember like when I was growing up, my dad was probably the biggest trash talker that there was. And we'd go to the parks, and every time he shot, he'd shoot it and say, "Count it." And he was the biggest trash talker, but you know, that "count it," it always sticks in my head. And even now when I'm at the free throw line, I'll just remind myself, and you know, I'll just say "count it" to myself, just because it's part of my childhood and it's part of my memory. So even like during the course of a game, I'm always brought back to previous basketball memories or basketball stories or instances in which, you know, the game brought me like a lot of joy. I would never define myself solely as a basketball player, because I think there's so much more to me than just that. One of my biggest passions is education. I'm somebody that grew up and went to New York City public schools my entire life, yet I've been granted the opportunity to come to a private institution of a higher education to study and kind of expand my horizons and learn with the best of them, you know? I think people, when they have conversations with me and they get the chance to talk to me, they really realize that there's a lot more there than just playing the game of basketball. I have other aspirations and goals in life. One day I want to be a good father, and that has nothing to do with playing a game. It, you know, has to do with being a responsible individual who can take care of his family. So when I was younger, I always dreamed of, you know, playing in the NBA, playing professionally. And I always had that dream probably up until about, I would say, end of freshman year of high school. And then towards the end of freshman year of high school, I think I got a much better gauge of how competitive the game was, how many people played the game. I was exposed to really what kind of level of talent you needed to get there and what it took to get there and what kind of work you needed to put there. And I just had to be realistic with myself. And I think at that time I realized that I wasn't there. The focus of my goals then, from that point on, was just to play in college. Over this last summer, over the last few months, I've actually put a lot of time into thinking about how much I need to value each game this year. Got 25 games. And it's almost putting a lot of pressure on myself at times. I really want to do well and have a good year. But at the same time, I also want to have a lot of fun and, you know, enjoy this, because this will be the last time that I'm around a group of guys in which I'm competing, and I love the group of guys that I'm competing with. I've enjoyed taking it step by step, and that's kind of been the glory. I could never imagine coming to college and you know, playing college basketball and breaking the records that I've broken. I couldn't imagine, you know, scoring over 1,000 points in 3 years. Like, you know, I didn't know I'd score 1,000 points in college. I didn't know what to expect. That's been fun for me, and that's what kind of keeps me going, because I don't know what's next. I got the opportunity to play a different style of basketball that I had never been really exposed to other than watching it on TV in the Olympics. It was awesome. We played against a couple professional teams out in Eastern Europe, in Bosnia and Croatia. And, you know, I pretty much held my own against those guys. Guys were a little bit bigger. I remember after one of the games in Bosnia, against the best team we played in all of Europe while we were there, I asked one of the guys on the Bosnian team, I was like, do you think I could play here? And he said, I definitely think you could play here. Like, you have like the talent to play here. It'd just be a matter of adjusting. And I think he's absolutely right. Now that I've played in college and I've been like a pretty successful college basketball player, I definitely want to explore the next step and see whether or not I have what it takes to play professionally. I still have goals as a basketball player, you know, and regardless of whether or not I'm going to be in the NBA one day or play professionally somewhere, I still have goals as a basketball player. I still want to be really good. I'm still very competitive. We'll see at the end of the year where it takes me.
Joining us in studio is Colin Orcutt. So Colin, how good is White? Does he actually have a chance of playing professional sports?
Justin is an excellent D3 basketball player. And he has a skill level that probably could get him to a D1 program if he's a little bit taller. But let's be honest, he doesn't have NBA talent. As far as being able to play overseas, though, there are lots of different levels in Europe, and he could definitely find his way onto probably a mid-level European team, if not better, if you put the hard work in.
Let's say that doesn't work out. What is he prepared to do after sports is over for him?
Well, other than an athlete, Justin's also an outstanding academic student, and he's looking into a senior project that examines charter schools here in New York City. He has a passion for the academics, so there's a chance he could pursue that when he gets done with college. He's also done some film production work. He interned with Jonathan Hawk Film Productions in Chelsea. There's a chance he could, you know, look into that route as well. So he's got a few things he needs to weigh out when the season's finished.
What's the inspiration for the project that you built?
I was an athlete myself in college, and when I, you know, finished playing basketball, I wasn't really sure what to do next. I'd always been training for basketball, and suddenly I wasn't anymore. I thought it was kind of a singular experience, but the more I talked to other athletes, I realized that a lot of them go through it. So I decided to try and examine, you know, individual stories to try and gain like a wider perspective on it, and that's kind of what this project attempts to do.
So this is just a short clip of a much longer piece that you're working on. Tell us a little bit about the scope of the piece and when we can expect to see it.
Yeah, the scope of the piece is it follows Justin through his senior year as he's coming upon the decision about whether or not to continue playing basketball, to pursue the option. And as that journey goes along, you meet a few other athletes who have walked away from games in, you know, different ways. So you kind of learn their stories and guess what you'd like Justin to do. This will obviously be finished when Justin's season ends in March, and then with post-production, I'm hoping it'll be up at the end of the spring, early summer.
Colin, looks great. Can't wait. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Yes, ready.
Oh, come on, Randy. Animal shelter, here I come. And no, I'm not crazy or emotionally damaged. That's a stereotype. I just belong to a total loser. I'm a good dog. So if you want a pet, adopt. And if you see Randy, tell him he dropped his wallet.
This financial advisor is being accused of committing one of the largest investment frauds in the history of the United States.
I guess we're not going to Aspen. That's fine. You see, I like tennis balls. He likes insider trading. So he's going to jail and I'm going to a shelter. And no, they're not the same thing. Shelters are for good pets that want to be adopted. Jails are for criminals. I've done nothing. Uh-oh. Okay, I stole a cheeseburger once. I'm a dog.
Reporter and CUNY Graduate School of Journalism student Mariana Vasconellos recently explored one of New York City's least conventional professions. John Toussaint works for the Times Square Alliance as a gum buster. He thinks removing gum is one of the best jobs in the world.
In the beginning, cleaning gum was one of the silliest things I have ever heard of in my life. If someone told me that I would be a gum buster, I would have probably laughed at them. First, I would have asked them, what the hell is a gum buster? Then I would probably laugh. I never in my life thought that I would be doing something like this. One of the best things about working out there is that a lot of people don't know what the gum buster is, first of all. So they actually will come over to me and start conversations. I get to meet people from all over the country. Several months a year, different crowds come in from different countries. And you meet people from Brazil, from England, from France, from Germany, from Russia. People who I probably would never, ever meet. Today, when I see people chewing gum and throwing it on the ground, it's very frustrating because I know that that gum is going to stay in the ground forever unless somebody removes it. It's one of the worst things I've ever seen. It stays around in the city and it makes an area look disgusting. I actually don't allow my kids to eat gum anymore. One of the funniest things that ever happened to me while working out there was actually seeing a group of guys come out in their underwear. I don't know if they were, I don't know if these guys were advertising underwear.
I am so grateful for my job right now.
Today, my relationship with New York is that, first of all, it's home for me. I've watched the city go from one of the most crime-riddled, disgusting places to being one of the most beautiful places on the planet. I feel like now I have a part of that change. You know, I'm part of that. I'm actually there making a change in my own city, and it's a beautiful feeling. It really is. Small contribution, cleaning up gum. Doing my part. I'm the gum buster.
Thanks to Mariana Vasconellos for that piece. And that's this edition of 219 West. Thanks for being with us. I'm Rima Abdelkader.
And I'm John DePietro. As we graduate, this will be our last production for 219 West. Next month's program will be produced by our fellow classmates. We'll have more stories about the people and the issues of New York City. And we hope you'll find your way back to us.
On behalf of our team, Alana Rigal, Brian Winkowski, Aisha Al-Muslim, and Geneva Sansadowitz, thank you for watching and best wishes in the new year.